Onyx, why don't you briefly recap last episode?
We got there. We kicked some stuff's butt.
Accurate recap.
I don't know, I have all kinds of stuff written down in there, but yeah. Lots of attacks, lots of crits. I am now tracking the crits as from last game and on. I want to see all this stuff. But yeah, it's fun. Oh, and then last and but not least, Baphomet showed up right before we decided that it was time for us to go before we died.
Yeah, time to go before you guys died. Yes, correct.
Roland found the Feywild.
Oh yeah, Roland found the Feywild.
Fey you, fey me.
Welcome to the Vale, a rare bastion of civilization in a world recuperating after a terrible, centuries-long war. Though the battles ended 200 years ago, the land still recovers from this period of tumultuous strife and slavery. Join now the defenders of the Vale, as they navigate a world riddled with opportunity and tragedy, all the while seeking glory, gold, and adventure.
So, I have you and your people down. You were by a priestess, Sorshana. Don't forget you have the 4 really powerful guys that have been helping you fight stuff, and they're going to be important later. But last we left off, Baphomet had just come through. There was a demon left. Lots of summoning energy was radiating throughout the field. And this giant Minotaur demon lord is staring at everybody. Remember, the beams of electricity-like energy has surrounded your big people, including the storm giant skeleton barbarian, your necromancer, your warforged melee kinda combatant, and your priest. And time has started to somewhat slow down for you guys. Things are taking longer, which is great, because if anybody wants to make a perception check real quick, DC 10.
Onyx got an 18.
Sue got a 30.
Basil got a 13.
Matsu got a 17.
All of you, low DC for a while. Oh,
Grok crit and got a 28.
remember the portal above you where Tiamat, not an aspect of Tiamat, or I can't think of the word, not an aspect, but a avatar of Tiamat, but actual Tiamat is trying to rip her way into this world. Well, you all, especially Grok and Sue, what the heck? That's not even a crit. Cheater. Look up and notice Tiamat's red dragon mouth is actually through the portal, and you can feel the heat of flame as it starts to descend upon the party. In a moment, we're all going to do dexterity saves. Not yet. Don't do it yet, because we'll lose track of it. I just want to take a moment and set up the severity of the next few moments, because you have that. You're staring a demon lord in the face, and portals with enemies are going to drop enemies all around you. So it's going to be serious fight time soon. Now, it's going to be rough. You hear, like I said, time's kind of slowing down. You guys feel like, you know those dreams where you're trying to run from something, but it feels like you're trying to run through like pudding because you're real slow motion?
Vaguely.
Yeah, but then I kick its butt.
All right, well, first of all, I don't know what type of pudding you eat, but my pudding does not have a butt.
You haven't played enough D&D then.
You feel, because as you're staring at Baphomet, his mouth is not moving, but it somehow each of you feel like he's staring directly at you. Maybe like one of those creepy old paintings where the eyes move as you walk, but it looks like he's fully facing each of you individually, and you hear a deep and groveling laughter.
You are the defenders of this realm. You claim righteousness, each of you, some varying level of evil yourself.
He takes a moment, and each of you feel as he burrows into your souls, and he goes,
All of you, each of you, should drop a knee and become kings of my world, or you stand there and die as hypocrites.
Okay. The funny thing is, right when I saw you, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Then kneel, Onyx, the coward.
You kneel in front of me.
he laughs.
Why would I kneel before a child coward, a pretender king?
I'm a king. At least that's what I was told. And I'm not no coward.
No? Are you a big, brave man?
Yes.
Everything kind of freezes, and you're seeing a collective vision. At least you think you are. And you're way underground. And even if you don't have dark vision, you manage to see just fine. What you see is a group of about 25 or 30 Earth Ganassi, all heading down, just loaded with mining equipment. Right, just loaded with gear. They're getting ready to. It looks like they're going on an expedition. If any of you have worked with ore before, which Onyx has, then you recognize they've found a vein, and these guys are going to go extract the vein. And the tunnels are older, and you see wood beams sporadically built throughout the tunnels to keep them up. And a couple of them are arguing, and the youngest two, babes, probably their first expedition, are just going back and forth. And at one point in time, the bigger one pushes the smaller one, laughs at him, and maybe calls him a name. And you guys don't really hear the name. You don't understand the language for the most part. It's like a dream where you can kind of get the intent behind what's being said, but you don't really hear the words. And the smaller one runs off. Now, these guys are towards the end of the tunnel, and the smaller one is kicking some rocks. He's throwing a fit. And at some point in time, he hauls off and slugs a beam. Then he sits down, and he's kind of pouting like a kid would do. And a few seconds later, an ominous crack spreads throughout the cavern. Looking panicked, the kid looks up and sees that the beam is split, and a giant crack is split all the way up into the top of the roof, and the supporting beams are about to splinter. Looking back at his fellow miners, he takes a moment. He should say something. He should go save them. Instead, out of terror, he turns and flees back the way they come. Moments later, the cave collapses. All the other miners are dead. The only person to survive was that young kid. The young kid runs back to his people, and everybody celebrates that he was able to survive. And the kid kind of keeps the secret to himself, denying fault that the freak accident happened, and allow the people to celebrate that somebody survived such a tragic accident. And then you slowly watch as a cool time lapse happens. If this was a movie, maybe the camera would be panning around the kid standing there, and as the camera makes the circle around the kid, he grows up into the warrior Onyx you see today. And a brief moment later, everybody's back to seeing what's on the battlefield, and Baphomet almost looks smugly down upon the freshly shamed Onyx.
I didn't do... It was an accident, okay?
Murderer, coward, glory stealer, stolen valor. You are no different than any of my other people. Kneel, survive, rule.
But it was an accident.
29 dead. How many families lost their father, brother, sister, or mother because of your accident?
But I didn't mean to.
And Onyx is kind of having his first existential crisis that you guys have really seen him have. Other than the other time he didn't know which bad guy to hit first. You see as Onyx trembles, his emotion that he had long repressed, racking his body, and Baphomet briefly looks victorious. And Onyx almost looks like he's going to collapse. We're going to pause there for a second. And a moment later, collectively, you guys hear just one sentence as the focus of Baphomet changes to another party member. You hear the sentence,
I have a very clean conscience. I haven't used it even once yet.
and then you guys hear almost a chorus of mocking laughter.
What about you, murderer? Why don't you kneel? Assassination is your game anyway.
That's true. But my grief counselor died the other day, and he was so good at his job I don't even care.
If you don't have inspiration, you do.
Do you remember? Do you remember your first Sue?
I do. I
Young
remember
Millie.
all of them.
And you guys, again, the same sort of thing happens where you get transported almost to a collective vision. And you find yourself into some highly compacted city. It looks kind of mountainous. It's built in the mountains. That's why it looks mountainous. Lots of like really dense, like a really thickly, just, I don't know how to describe this. Hold on, while I stop trying to say thick. Just a really heavily populated area. Like there's only so much space, but it boomed. A lot of ore work, stuff like that. So they're able to. And you see a young looking half elf. He would be young by human standards, which I think is the same as half elf standards. Maybe 14, with nothing but some raggedy clothes, dagger, and a lot of kind of anxiety on his face as he walks in. And you see a group of people who look pretty rough, and comes in and they're like, "Hey, what do you want?" And he goes, "Well, I've been talking to the hand, the guy, and he said that if I could come in here," and just really kind of stuttering and stammering over his stuff. He's really nervous. He said, "If I could come here, maybe you guys would hire me for some work." All right, we got some work for you. I tell you what. And this guy comes around the desk and he puts his arm on a very young and skinny and frail looking Sue, and he goes, "Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna head down over here." And he gives him an address on a paper, and he says, "There's one person inside the building, starting in about an hour and a half. You get in there, you do what we're famous for, you come back here with proof, and you got yourself a job." So the guy, he goes, okay, I won't let you down." "You better not, kid. People only let me down once." So young Sue kind of takes off. And the guy, you hear him holler. The guy hollers at Sue as he's leaving, "Remember, if you get caught, you're dead, stupid." And he's running. You just hear a chorus of laughter from all deplorables that are left in the room. Deplorables, that's a word that is enough. And so, flash forward a little bit. The sun's set. It's dark. And you see a very young Sue trying to jimmy the lock on a window. Makes a little too much noise, and the window slides open, and you hear a young voice. What are you doing? Are you okay?" Sue kind of looks in and goes, "Yeah." And the young voice goes, "You must be hungry. Are you trying to steal for food? Here, I have some leftover dinner." And he comes in, and she invites the young girl, invites Sue in, sits down and has a meal with her. Sue shares dinner with this person, and then introduces, and you see them, they're talking, and she's rambling on about stuff that's not important. And after a while, Sue turns around to leave, and the young girl says, "Anyway, my name is Millie. Come back if you ever need anything." Sue, very conflicted, goes outside, waits a couple of more hours. This time comes into the window that Millie forgot to lock, and completes his first assassination. He grabs some sort of token, maybe a lock of hair, and runs back as secretly as he can while he's crying tears down his face, runs back to the organization to prove his worth. Not too long after that, he utters that sentence, "I have a very clean conscience. I haven't even used it once yet." As Sue, very businesslike and devoid of emotion, steps his first steps away from that organization, never to return, and off to look his future in his face. You guys return, and you see Baphomet staring at Sue.
"Do you think Millie would like your life choices? I can think of at least one she'd regret."
I imagine she would. I remember her. I remember all the people I lost along the way. You know, maybe a career as a tour guide was not the right choice.
How's Onyx doing?
He's sitting there holding back tears, not very well, but, still mumbling, "I didn't mean to, it's not my fault."
A few moments later, you hear the voice again.
"And you. Some of these people committed an atrocity in the past, but you How many of your own guild have died because of you?
And everybody kind of pauses for a moment, and he goes,
You know who I'm talking to. I'm sure the story sounds familiar.
couldn't resist. And again, we go on a journey, into a cinematic journey. This time we're out in the desert, somewhat near where the pyramids were, where you guys had your vision. About that time, actually. And you see a group of guildies. You guys would all recognize these guildies. They were lost on a mission. You wouldn't recognize any of the names, so I'm not going to waste my time going over them. But there's a battle. There's a really big battle, and it's some cultists, and they're fighting your guildies. And you see Matsu there, and Matsu is a whirlwind. He is blinking. He's teleporting all over the battlefield. You see him. He comes out of the nether and appears behind somebody and shoves his sword right through their heart. And as that person's falling, he turns with his offhand and he points his hand at somebody, and a couple of Eldritch blasts come out and slay another foe. And he's just a whirlwind of energy. And you see one small gnome, kind of dressed in a little bit of camouflage. It looks like the earth is the heat is waving around him, and you guys realize this gnome is invisible, and he's casting a spell. But at the conclusion of the spell, Matsu doesn't even miss a beat, but a red aura starts to emanate from him, and a rage that would rival the greatest of any barbarian rages comes over Matsu. And at that point in time, he no longer cares if it's an enemy or if it's an ally, but he continues his horrid slaughter. And briefly, you see him bouncing around the battlefield, killing every guildie and every member in that group. The guildies were probably slain because of the surprise, because Matsu was the most reliable of all of them, and quite honestly was looking to rise ranks through the guild very quickly. After what had to have been 30 minutes of just one-sided slaughter, Matsu stops. The aura dissipates. The gnome is nowhere to be found, and he kind of collapses in the sand, screaming out in a primal roar of anguish as he looks upon the beloved guildies that he slaughtered. Freaking out, he kind of runs around frantically. What am I going to do? They're never going to believe me. What am I going to? I can't just go back and say, hey guys, weird thing. I flipped the wig and I slaughtered everybody. He starts to gather all the bodies, and no looting, just puts them into a big pyre and burns them. He sets fire to all of them. Once all the bodies are gone, Matsu spends probably a day or two just there. He helps, cover the pile in sand, which isn't that hard, and mourns, and then he starts the saddest, loneliest walk back. He could have probably sped it up with some magic, but he walked all the way back to the guild. He showed up alone, and they assumed that the guildies had died in battle and allowed him time to grieve without quizzing him because he was so beat up. Again, as it seems to be a theme with your guildies, coming back as the lone survivor and using silence as a storyteller as opposed to telling lies to his guild. You guys come back, and you see a grief-stricken Matsu with a fresh wound reopened over his dead guildies. And he goes, you hear the voice emanate.
You betrayer. Why don't you betray your guildies now and show them the way to survival and join me and Neil?
I had no choice in that atrocity. No one would believe me. No one. No one's seen magic like that before. I did panic, yes. And every day, I still remember seeing their faces. Their faces smiling and then turning to grimace and fear. All the while, I just laughed like a maniac. I had no control over my bearings.
You just hear laughter. And it's almost maniacal laughter coming from Baphomet at this point in time. Nobody touch a hit point. Nobody touch a spell slot, or I will delete you.
Hello, Guildies. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Defenders of the Veil. We hope you are enjoying it thus far. If you're a new listener, welcome. We appreciate you being here. As far as announcements go, I can now confirm that the campaign will be wrapping up very, very soon. There's just a couple more episodes after this, I think. But we've got some side stuff that we are doing in between the end of Campaign 1 and Campaign 2, which I've already mentioned in previous mid-rolls. So you guys can look forward to that. As far as details concerning Campaign 2, well, I'm just a player, so I don't know much about it. But it's gonna be good. I can guarantee that. But yes, again, thank you for listening. Please, make sure that you share us with your friends, tell others about us, help spread the word, you know. Word of mouth, it's the purest form of advertisement, and we'd appreciate it. Alright, Guildies, both new and old, let's get back to the show.
You just hear laughter. And it's almost maniacal laughter coming from Baphomet at this point in time. But Baphomet looks around and he goes,
Look at this, your healer, your moral compass. Look at her and her secrets. She's your moral standard, huh? Her selfish, self-serving, ignorant to the needs of others, moral standing.
he chuckles again. And then we're all kind of taken back to a much younger time in Rabijjan's life. She looks a little disheveled. She's kind of stumbling through the towns of the streets of a town that's a little bit more popular. You guys haven't been there yet. It's one of the towns that are much further north, beyond the Elven Kingdoms. And it's a pretty big town, and there's a lot of people, and we're in kind of a market. And you see a young and probably not even quite adult Rabijjan kind of hustling around, scrimping and scrounging around, and she's got, breadcrumbs and dirt on her face, and she looks like a damn mess. Rabijjan maybe peeks around the corner of a building, and she's kind of studying the crowd and looking, and she sees a human, an older human, kind of hustling, and this guy is kind of clutching his side. He bumps into somebody, and Rabijjan recognizes that person tried to pick his pocket, and may have. But what the guy did was, when he was messing with his pocket, a bigger bag drops, and without a hint of hesitation, using her natural feline speed, Rabijjan hustles across the courtyard, rolls back, grabs that bag, and heads into the corner. And inside that bag, she sees all sorts of coins and jewels and baubles. And then, if this was a movie, the camera would kind of pan out from Rabijjan in the corner, very excited to be looking at all her new shinies she got, and daydreaming, almost probably drooling at the food that she's going to go buy. It would kind of go back over the crowd, and you would see the man as he goes hustling into the back alley behind a tavern, where you see a couple of bigger goons there, and the goons kind of nod and they're like leaning against a crate, or perhaps leaning against the wall of the tavern. And the guy comes out and he goes, I've got the money, just like your boss said. I've got it. It's all here. I counted it. I sold everything. Just give me back my family. And he goes to reach under where he was clutching, and in his absolute horror, realizes the bag he had brought with his apparent payments not there. And you see the goons, kind of the big, you think like old school London, like Goonies, right? Kind of come in, they're cracking their knuckles, and as the camera would pan out, you would hear the cracks as they start beating on this guy for wasting their time. And then you would pan back to a Rabijjan who's got a face full of custard pie, just happy as can be, probably some new jewelry on, maybe some earrings. You might even recognize one of the pieces of jewelry she has on now. And then you would come back, And how does reliving and having that memory exposed make Rabijjan feel?
Well, I don't know. It sounds like Rabijjan was unaware that that money belonged to somebody in such dire need. But if she didn't know, she would realize right then that that's what happened. And she would probably feel pretty sick to her stomach. And yeah, she probably wouldn't be making eye contact with anybody right that second.
I don't think anybody's making eye contact with anybody at this moment.
You
Maybe
guys are all
Sue.
jerks. Except for
Yeah,
Sue.
Sue is.
Sue's like, what's wrong with you guys? We gotta kill this demon.
Sue isn't going to live his last moments of life with regret.
No regrets.
Dang right.
You're all still not so innocent. And you, monk, priest of peace, you were spawned from the cult we founded.
That is correct.
You grew up in the cult we founded. You reviled in the cult we founded.
I was born in it. You might even say molded by it.
Participated in it of your own free will. Basil, not quite so innocent.
It's never been my title.
That's because you can't be Basil the Innocent when you've got a history like this.
And then you guys fly back to a young child. What color is Basil's hair?
I think it's dark, like brown or something. Black, brown.
I asked for a color, not a shade.
Well,
You see a young, dark-colored hair child dressed as a cultist. You see many adult cultists around, and you see it's a dark room. I mean, think 1980s TV cult, but not campy. There's candles, there's paint. It could be some sort of blood on the ground with runes and symbols of horrible things. And you see Basil being led up by two adults to an altar. And as he comes up to the altar, you see Basil kind of looking down at this person who's clearly alive, and these adults and all these other people, and you start to hear whispers. And the whispers are like, "You do it if you want to be one of us, do it if you want to be one of us, do it if you want to do it, and you be a part of the collective, do it." And it's just over and over again, kind of whispering, and he looks a little hesitant, and after a few minutes, he kind of looks around, and he shakes. You see him shaking his head as if to answer a question that nobody has asked, and then you watch as young Basil sacrifices the person on the altar to whatever purpose this cult is doing. And the person chained gives very little resistance. They look famished. They look malnourished. Easy target for a 7-year-old Basil. And after he's done, Basil turns and looks at the adults around him and smiles. Maybe he got speckles of blood on him. And he goes, "That was good, right? That's what we needed to do." And you see somebody scruff his hair and go, "That's exactly what you needed to do." And they walk on. Later, as Basil has been rescued, almost against his will, from this cult, you see who you now recognize as the Great Old One. And you see the Great Old One spending many times forcing Basil to not run, keeping him from running from him and returning to the cult. You see him having long conversations talking about morality and upbringing and trying to expose all the damage from the way he was raised. And after what could have been weeks or years of this, you see Basil break down and he goes, "I wish I could just forget. I wish I didn't have to carry this with me anymore." And you see the Great Sage go, "Well, that could be an option. Do you really want to forget your past?" Basil crying, he goes, "I would give anything to forget my past." And he's like, "You have to give nothing except for your past." And you see the great sage engage in a ritual, Basil and him meditating. He puts his hands across his face, almost like Spock. If I can use Spock for a second, doing a Vulcan mind meld. And after a little while, Basil looks up and goes, "Oh, hello, who are you?" And that was the first day of the rest of his life. Later, you guys remember the temple, the great temple in the pyramid in the desert where you guys saw gods? After the first time Basil witnesses one of those effects, you now see a look of abject horror on his face as he regains the memories that the Great Sage had blocked out from him. And ever since then, he's been carrying this secret back with you guys. And you come back out and you hear Baphomet laughing.
You already followed me once. Come back to your home, monk. Rejoin your family.
Did. I was very foolish then. And he sort of takes like a shaky breath and his kind of clenches his fist. I can't imagine it would have any sort of great effect, but he would sort of steal his mind kind of and use his stillness of mind, and he sort of lets out this exhalation, and he returns with, but my greatest regret was letting my burdens fly away from me. It was my responsibility to hold that knowledge, and I gave it up at the first opportunity. I'm not so weak anymore, not now that I have my friends and my guild. And just like them, I know I'm not the same person that I was back then, and I know that today I would do anything to stop the likes of you. And the emboldening bond, when it's like cast on his party members, he sort of brands them with a word and like a tattoo that just sort of appears. And it's in a different script, probably Celestial or something. And the word that is probably written somewhere on his chest begins to sort of glow as he, sort of feels the warmth of his bond with his guild.
First of all, that was amazing role playing, Basil. Saul, the role player. If you don't have an inspiration, you also have one now. So do Matsu and Onyx. I forgot to say that as well, but that was really good. Just pause for a second. I love the way you guys are each responding. Like, I like the fact that Onyx is dealing with this the way he is. I like the fact that Sue has probably done nothing but think about this as he tools his future and was very well prepared and had already dealt with this demon. I like that Matsu is still horrified over this recent event. And I like that you've used it to fuel your peace clericiness. That brings us to somebody else.
But you're not the only one who served our purpose in the past. Is he Dragon Turtleborn?
Grok gets a look on his face and says, "Oh shit, it's my turn."
Grok, no!
Oh no! Oh, Grok!
Come back to the army you served before. Grok, liberator of the flesh. Grok, incinerator of the weak. Grok, torturer for the dragons.
That's not very nice of you to award me titles now that I'm gone.
And we go back to another vision, and this is almost a different plane. This is where the Dragonborn are from, in the Dragon Turtleborn. It is a Dragon Tortureborn. And we go to a very young, looking Dragon Turtleborn. And you see actual Dragonborn chained. And you see a young Tortillian. And he's got shackles kind of on, and he's chained to an area. But you see as a group of, he's standing in a circle, or he's standing amidst a circle of probably 12 cages. And he's got himself a book, and he's reading this book. And anybody who knows anything, anybody who's proficient in Arcana besides him can go ahead and roll. That's an actual character from the guild, not an NPC. Can actually roll an Arcane check. DC 12. Anybody proficient in that besides him? I don't think so, actually, huh?
No.
Nope.
Well, let's have a story time. Wizards, warlocks, druids, clerics, they each get cantrips that they can cast when you get them at level 1. The way they get the cantrip, it talks about this, and the way they get the cantrip is casting that spell over and over and over and over again. They cast the spell so long, or so often, and for so long that this spell is ingrained in their spirit. They don't have to study the spell. They don't have to memorize it or commit it to memory, and it doesn't take up any spell slots. That's why they get so few of them, and that's why they get them, and they can cast them as often as they want. And you see this turtle, or this Tortillian, casting just firebolt over and over and over with a look of excitement as he gets closer to unlocking this arcane secret on these Dragonborns. Every so often one will die, and another one will get dragged in by the other slaves from the dragon. And you hear him screaming about, "I don't know what happened," and he's gaining information for his dragon overlords, who don't care, quite honestly, in most of the cases, what the information is. Once they've been sentenced to torture, they're sentenced to death. And this look of elation as this turtle is very good at doing this. and is taking a bit of glee in doing this. And it looks like what goes on, like a montage. Maybe you hear the Eye of the Tiger playing, as you see him just torturing for what seems like years. And it fades back out as you now recognize that Grok used to be a slave, but a slave who was entrusted with the torturing of other slaves. And you hear the chuckle of Baphomet going,
You can have your position back again. And imagine the fun you could have with the power you've gained. And imagine the power you could gain with the knowledge of the dragons, and the knowledge of my demon lords at your disposal. The terror would be unlimited. A rival maybe to my own.
Oh, that's gonna be a hard pass.
Grok response I could have possibly
how was Grok feeling?
He was offered his position back and that he could go back to the life that he had before. And Grok says, no. He said hard pass. What do you want him to say? Do you want him to go
good.
No, I think that's the most
back to being a prisoner?
Oh, that's perfect.
It's very Grok in his answer, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be a prisoner, Grok. You would be a lord yourself. Your task would be without enslavement. And all the ancient knowledge we can grab will be yours to read.
And you guys kind of all sit there after that. Was that everybody? It's starting to get warmer as time hasn't been stopped, but it's been slowed down significantly. And the fire from Tiamat, which, by the way, it is the most hellacious looking fire you guys have ever seen. It's not a red flame, it's a light blue flame as it comes bellowing down from the sky. Briefly, in shackles, you hear Sorashana's voice, and she says, "Steal your mind. This is the demon of madness." And a explosion happens, a radiant explosion happens out from her. The big guys are free again, including Grok's posse. And you guys are revisiting those visions. Basil, you see a hue as all of the adults who are leading. I mean, everybody sees this. You get to revisit Basil's scene as he's approaching, and you guys can veritably taste the madness induced by this lord on the people in the room. And then you see what you didn't see before were the years of grooming and corruption that this child was going through to make him feel this was the way to be. And you realize that as a product of environment, Basil, when he was given the opportunity to choose good, chose good. And when he was kind of groomed and pushed into choosing evil, chose evil. Because the people he trusted, loved, and respected made it. Onyx, you see that, yes, you hit the pillar, but you were a kid. Come on, bro. You're strong, but you're not that strong. You weren't that strong when you were 10 or whatever the age was, barely able to go out on an expedition. You see the energies, the red kind of same hue that Basil saw. When you hit it, moments later, you see a same blast of that energy, and you hear the maddening laughter of Baphomet as his magics split the beam and caused the incident. He's the reason why 29 of your people are dead. You've carried this grief for so long. And Matsu, you now recognize that gnome as a aspect of Baphomet. You see him casting a spell on you, and instead of seeing a tiny gnome, you now see the full-size Baphomet casting a spell of madness on you. The same thing goes for Sue. When you go back into that first Assassin's group, all of those people, they had that red tint of madness spawned from being followers of Baphomet. And Sue realizes the first assassination group he joined was an early incarnation of the cult. And so kind of all of these things were tied together with that common thread fate. And now that you've got this clarity and this realization, what are you guys doing and thinking and feeling?
Basil is still feeling some shame at having abandoned his memories, but his resolve in understanding that Baphomet must be stopped is doubled, and it's brought to the forefront of his mind, and he understands that no matter what happened back then, all that matters is that this creature should be brought down.
Matsu still feels all the grief from what had happened. You know, he lost close friends, people he loved. He killed them and had never felt so ashamed. But now, re-seeing the imagery and seeing that it wasn't just some crazy gnome major what have you that forced this upon him, but it was this thing here which just makes Matsu angry.
Does it have any effect on Sue?
Sue worked through these demons already.
I have a feeling that Sue's probably the most well-balanced character in the group. Which, if you guys could hear some of his stories that I'm making up in my head right now, he's not real well-balanced. He's a well-balanced assassin, so there's that. What about Grok? How does Grok feel about this stuff?
I'm not sure yet. I'm taking it in.
Because Grok, you were on the plane that he's from. You were in the Abyss when you were serving these dragons. And one of the things that you know about the Abyss, and now that you can kind of place the location, is the time spent in his environment leads to madness. You were born there. I mean, you're from this planet. Your people are from this planet. But for some reason, you, as a young child, ended up a slave in his plane of the Abyss. And anybody who spends any time becomes mad. And while usually there's not long-term issues with it, it might explain some of your behaviors. So, let's have everybody make a dexterity saving throw.
What about Onyx?
Oh, that's right. Onyx, how do you feel? Good call, buddy.
Onyx reaction is big guy looking over at the skeleton storm giant, throwing me at his face.
Yes.
And he goes,
Take it for two,
and he
please.
goes before me, so that's good. How much do we get a roll?
One dexterity save, and it's the fire of Tiamat, so you're going to need like a 26 to pass.
Is it a
Oh,
normal
okay,
roll?
so even a D4 won't work for me.
Yeah, Matsu got a dirty 20.
Is it normal? or
I've
is it-
got a
is it granted
21.
something? 31.
Did you get a 31?
Backflipping is kind of the one thing I can do.
And you get, on a dexterity save, if you make it, you take nothing, right?
Yeah, if it's the save to take half, then I take nothing.
Yeah. Wow. You just took nothing from Tiamat's fire.
Yay! I don't know how that looks visibly. I don't know how a backflip saves me from that, but you know what it does.
I'm
It
imagining
does.
that you flipped behind Onyx. This is gonna hurt,
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
Because a adult red dragon is 2066. Adult
Oh my
ancient red dragon.
It's what? It is what?
An ancient red dragon, their fire breath does 2066 fire damage on a failed save.
Kind of wishing we had more tieflings.
I just rolled 32d6 for 91 points of damage. Wow, that's this guy's worst save.
Yeah.
Did anybody get knocked down by that?
No, because I take half. So
Did everybody apply the damage?
good.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we take 91 half on a successful save, and the save DC is 26.
Yeah, you take 46 damage on a save. You take 46 damage if you did well. Did you roll for your minions as well, Grok?
Is it fire?
Yes.
Then I don't have to roll for the Iron Golem. He's immune.
Of course he's immune. Why would he not be immune?
Rabijjan is dead.
So
Nah.
And
Do you take half-
Groknelius is dead.
do you take half damage, or if you make the save, do you take no damage?
Half damage.
Okay, so it's 46 points of damage because you made your save of 20. It was a 26 save.
Well, I rolled a 27, but I get plus 10. So it's actually a 37.
Well, you definitely
Ba-
made your save.
Basil got plus 10 also.
Oh, well thanks. Where's plus 10 from?
Because you are within 30 feet of Bob.
Oh, right. You must have one, yeah. Big ball.
Rabijjan got plus 10. I don't
She's
think
still-
it matters for her.
She still failed, yeah.
Rabijjan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Grok.
It's okay. They'll be back in 2 days.
Mhm.
Actually,
I would like
excuse
them
me,
now.
one day. Yeah, I'd like them now, but that's not going to happen. As long as you didn't kill Irony. You kill Irony, then I'm going to get mad. I like Irony.
Wouldn't it be
Gosh.
ironic?
You won't be able to get Groknelius back until Phanilius returns from wherever he is. Because you have to touch the target for the spell.
Dang.
That's rough. All right, that was good. Maybe I should do another dragon breath before we start our turn. But I think I think it's going to devolve into mass combat at this point in time.
Hey, this is Sue. Thanks for listening to this episode of Defenders of the Veil. By the way, what do you call a snowman with a six-pack? An abdominal snowman.
Hi, this is Mallory. I do the voice of Rabijjan, and I wanted to say thank you for joining us for another episode of Defenders of the Veil. If you would like to hear more of Defenders of the Veil, you can find us at Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and pretty much anything else that plays podcasts. You can also find us on Twitter at Defenders Veil and Facebook, Defenders of the Veil. Our episodes come out weekly, and we would love for you to share us with your friends. We hope that you will join us again soon. Thanks again.
In my entire life, I've never understood how you can dodge a fiery blast.
Well, you could like lay down and get under it, or you could cartwheel to the side or something.
I'm like a four elements monk, so maybe I do a backflip that's so cool that the fire's like, whoa, okay, alright, I'll just leave you alone.
When you
This is-
backflip, you become fire.
Wizards, warlocks, druids, clerics, they each get cantrips that they can cast when you get them at level 1, right? You guys are aware of this now that we've been playing D&D for 2 years.
What's that cantrip?
I hate you.
You get it at level 1?
I also hate you.
I thought that was a prestige class thing.
It is. It is a prestige class. You got to get level 3 in one, level 2 another, and a whole bag of FU to get it opened up. And so what happens is, ooh woo. I'm gonna be an ooh woo DM. I'm gonna be like, does a 36 hit ooh woo?
Oh, no.
Almost.
Are you a big brave man? Ooh woo. And you see a young Tortillian. Tortillian, right? That's what they're called? Tortillian?
Cortelian?
It's a word now. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a word before, but it's a word now.
Yeah, that's it now, yeah.
It's the Italian turtles.
A Tortillian is similar to a blending stump. And how do you sharpen a Tortillian? These are all questions we have to know now. You gotta show me your sandpaper block. And then wipe it with a napkin. It's a tool. It's a writing tool or something? A cylindrical drawing tool. All right. Wait.
What is the Tortelian?
Okay, the Tortolans. They're the turtle race from World of Warcraft.
Oh.
I feel way better.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So